Hello and welcome to another installment of Let's Play Realism Invictus. This is the Asharid Het, and at the end of our last video we had just founded Corinth, and we were getting ready to hook up our horses here, and possibly go for settling this spot early, given our food abundance. We can train settlers and workers quickly, so that lends itself to a more aggressive early expansion when that yield is not usable otherwise, as we quickly approach our rather low happy cap. So we're going for bronze working, and I wanted to switch to autocracy quickly, and then we can start building our Ektromoi irregular unit, which has that nice bonus against archers. Pardon me. Worker is going to be done in one turn, so I'll need to go ahead and queue something up next. I think our scout died. No, it didn't. It's still here. So we don't need another scout. That's not really worth it now, the granary. Yeah, this is going to take a while to research. I'll start building Orban fairly soon, but I need stuff to build in the meantime. I might actually just go for founding that third spot. I'll build an archer and send it over there. Okay, and then we went with the granary here. I think that's probably the best choice for now. After bronze working, I'm going to go and get mysticism so I can get storyteller circles and pagan temples built. In fact, I don't know if I specifically took a look at the Greek pagan temple. Yeah, I actually neglected to do that when we originally were overviewing the Civ. So, okay, it gives an additional science on its own, that's nice. I think the standard pagan temple... I'm not sure that there is really a standard one, because every Civ has its own cultural variety. So +2 seems kind of high. Most of these are +1 on their own. Science bonus is nice, and then if you also have a monument, it's 2. I actually like the Pagan Temple quite a bit. It's a unique, flavorful, early building. I like the fact that you can only build it if there isn't already a major religion in the city, and that it is sort of upgradable indirectly via pyramids, Stonehenge, Statue of Zeus, etc. Yeah. But the storyteller circle is very important to get built early on. This +2 science early on in the game is often a considerable proportion of your total research. It looks like a small number, and in absolute terms it is, but considering that it's only obsoleted with a building that does the same thing, effectively this carries through the whole game, 1, and 2, occurs at a time of very low research inflation, if you will. Every technology costs significantly less, and flat rate bonuses or flat absolute number bonuses are pretty rare in this mod. So get them where you can take them, I think. Or take them where you can get them. Okay. We'll need road building somewhat soon. This desert hill, and 5 turns till woodworking. It's a little inefficient, but actually I am just going to go ahead and put that worker there and have him wait until woodworking's done. so we can get started on this pasture. Neglecting to do that to build a mine over here, which we won't even use for a long time, is the worst of the two options. Alright. Gustav II. The medieval 2 Total War music here. Alright, let's see. You probably have a high war declaration likelihood. Very likely, yeah. Yeah, Gustavus Adolphus. It's kind of strange seeing Adolf. That's a name which is obviously associated with only one person in most people's minds, but probably not if you live in Scandinavia. Okay, so we're going to have to keep an eye out on him. He's militaristic, so his units are better, and he's highly likely to declare war. He came from the southwest, so we might have some competition for this spot. We'll see. Yeah, the more I look at it, the more confident I am we should just grab this spot quickly. That's a really nice area. It looks inviting, almost as if a city was supposed to go here, you know, between these mountains and on that riverbank. You know what? Do I want to do the olive grove instead? Yeah, why not? Some desert olives. Of course, you never know. Mines have a small chance to spawn a mineral resource at any point, so you forfeit the opportunity of discovering, say, you know... actually, it's not every mineral resource, I don't think. It might be. Oh, even coal. Okay. So yeah, and coal is vitally important. So you forfeiting the chance that you could randomly spawn a resource like that is something of an economic opportunity cost to consider. Oh, nice little peninsula here. This is a really nice looking continent overall. Sometimes you get maps that stand out in your mind. Well, even after the game's over, you remember some maps looking a lot more natural and pleasant, as opposed to the generic sort of clumpy blob continents which the default map scripts tend to generate.
Rotten wood cannot be carved.
Okay. Yeah, I'll skip the militia. Ooh, well... This one doesn't differ from base militia in any significant way. And we're about to get irregulars. I think one archer is going to be sufficient to guard that city spot. If I was playing with Raging Barbs, there's no way I would do that, but this seems relatively tame, and the culture pressure from the actual civs is starting to hem in the hinterland where the barbs typically come from. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't even see a barb city get established in the area we've explored so far. Maybe in this forest over here, but there's plenty of dark. I don't know if someone's already over there or if units have been walking around, unbeknownst to me. Normally, I wouldn't also... Well, I don't know. That's a case-by-case thing. Early expansion can be pretty crippling. Each city you found reduces, or rather increases, the tech cost for anything you research. And in the early game, they tend not to be very profitable. Anyway, so... But I want to grab this land before someone else does, and... I'm also playing on large, so the detriment of each marginal city is lower. And this just looks like one of those maps where you want to take land early. I know that sounds arbitrary, but if there's really good land that you already have and everything else is kind of mediocre, obviously it makes more sense to take a tall approach some of the time. But in this case, this river gold, yeah, to my south there's not really a great area to expand into, so I have this aforementioned backyard, and then it's just kind of moving west, and this is next in line. I think grabbing it now is better than waiting. Some of you others may not agree, and you may be right. I'm just kind of following my intuition on that one. Interesting. It's like Denmark or something. Okay. Yeah, I pretty much always take this early on. There's no "you've traded with our worst enemy" penalty for having open borders. And early in the game, if you have... Oh, we don't have sailing, actually. But if you do have sailing and you have coastal connections, then that early trade is nothing to sneeze at. I'm a bit tired today. I hope I don't make a foolish mistake, but we'll see. That would be rather embarrassing if I did something like game-endingly bad so early on. Okay. Go ahead and get this guy out. We'll parry this archer with our own. Yeah, that's a bit lazy, the long pre-selected movement path. He'll probably run into a wolf or something that I could avoid otherwise, but eh. I'm not too concerned about it. Alright, there is copper down here, and that's a little too far away just for getting copper, I think. And we gotta cross through this desert. I'm curious if there's any seafood here in addition to this fish, which would warrant settling here kind of as an intermediary city. It would be in the Renaissance if I did, when maritime trade really starts to take off, and yeah, because I mean these coast tiles aren't really that good on their own early in the game. You're not going to have shipyards and things like this to make them viable to work, and there's nothing else to work here. So we'd need to run a lot of specialists in this city, and that's not really something you can do early on. But definitely a backfill city at some point. I actually realized I went too far south with this archer. I was trying to get him back over there, but... yeah, there is a barb city here. I'll go ahead and move south and then turn around. Bactrian. Alright. Kind of funny how that city, if I conquered it, probably wouldn't change its name. Well, maybe if I was Alexander. Themistocles had no connection to Central Asia in any way, as far as I'm aware. warrior has a very low chance of killing us. I don't mind being adjacent to it. He'll still probably attack. No, he didn't. Alright. Yep, there we go. I might have been able to avoid that if I was micromanaging the unit. Aw, poor dog. Okay, we need one more experience to get to Woodsman 2. I'm gonna go heal where we are. And I'm gonna let this archer attack us. We're in the best spot, and I don't want to run away to the south. Okay, he moved away. I take kind of an awkward movement path, but if you're moving kind of generally in the light, no barb will come out of nowhere. Alright, this one we might lose. I hope we don't. Alright, cool. Yeah, those nearly even odds. I am going to defend a city with this, so I'm going to promote to Garrison 2. Move northwest. It's a bit risky. That archer is injured. If another barb comes out of here in like the next turn, we could lose the city. I might do a longer video today, but we'll see. I know I'm releasing these faster than I initially said. That may not always hold true, but I kind of have a hankering to play this, so I am. Okay, yep. Alrighty, let's see what Themistocles' third city on the list is. Alright, this is Sparta. Ironic, although the battle did not occur there, you know, 300, the Thermopylae between the mountains. I almost want to name it Thermopylae now because of that. Yeah, sure, why not? Because these mountains here. Yeah. We do have a delayed culture building tech priority, which isn't great, but getting the bronze working early so we can build a lot of irregulars will probably counter that. I don't really need a border pop in either of these cities right now, anyway. Yeah, it's kind of a boring choice. I probably should do another unit, but I'm going to need a granary eventually. And this archer with Garrison 2, if it can heal before getting attacked again, which it will because it would take something more than 2 turns to get here, even this archer. We're throwing the dice here, because if we get a bad roll, we'll lose the city, but a fortified Garrison 2 archer is going to be hard to uproot, even on flat land. This is pretty nice up here, too. I might settle along this coast. Okay, and that archer did not immediately turn around. It went north. I was working the potato. Why does it do stuff like that? Well, okay, that is actually better than this mine when you're building a worker. 4 versus 3. I just see unimproved potato while I'm running pastoral nomadism and think, that's not ideal. Of course, it doesn't give you any penalty on the resource itself, rather the improvement, but nevertheless, we need to chop this forest eventually. I don't want my movement impeded. We're going to need a road there soon, and like I said, you need 2 forests for the 1 health. So if there was a second forest, I would have kept this, but there's not, so we're going to do away with it. Alright, nice clean coastline here. And it looks like the Chinese are my only competitor. They'll probably make it up here before I do. I have no intention of peacefully settling that far away early enough for me to get there before they do. But yeah, there's not. Everyone kind of has their own corner. There doesn't seem to be a lot of regional settlement pressure. Okay, alright, we have pretty much explored all of that. I'm going to swing west and explore his capital because we just signed open borders. Ah, man. Well, he's going to have to cross the river, and I am in a forest, so I'll probably have okay odds here. If we win, we'll promote to Woodsman 2, which is nice. Cool, alright. Yeah, we did have pretty good odds. Above 80%. Okay, Woodsman 2, now we can move faster, and we'll be even more invulnerable in the forest. Okay, Olive Grove complete. That's mostly just an aesthetic garnish right now to commerce. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to work that. Yeah, I don't even have fishing yet. Wow. That's not really competitive with a coastal tile, but whatever. We'll send you here, and then you can chop that savanna on the coast. Let's come in from the north. Okay, level 2. Unless you have a pressing need for something else. Granaries are one of those things that just build it early and you won't regret it a lot of the time. We're going to get barracks up pretty quickly too, because that'll be a happiness bonus under autocracy. I'm actually going to go ahead and build a couple of these. I don't plan on attacking anyone soon, but if you think about it, battering rams... That's kind of bugging me. Add the G. The siege aid they give, though, is pretty considerable. If you have the right proportion, 2 first strikes in a stack, even if you never fight with the rams or intend to conquer any cities, just having them passively provide 2 first strikes to your other units you will fight with is a pretty big deal. So and that's the other thing too, I wanted to build them early. I won't start mass building melee units until I have barracks, because I'd be forfeiting the out of the gate XP, but siege workshops don't come out for quite a while, so there's no incentive to wait on building these. They're going to be the same stock battering rams either way. So I typically, if I'm in a position of safety, I like to start building them first when I'm assembling an army. Obviously, if you're under imminent threat, then build units that you're going to more immediately need. But in this case, I think we're fine for a little while. We do have plenty of warmongers, though, so I shouldn't entertain the illusion of safety or pretend that that's extensively there. I really love how the AI rushes you in this. It never does in the vanilla game. You can pretty much do whatever you want early on, but in this game, they will dow you with 4 or 5 units, which that doesn't take very long to build. But if you are caught with your pants down, or you have a city that's undefended or very poorly defended, then you can end up losing out fairly considerably from just a small attack. But the AI in this game knows how to do that, so always have your cities defended. Always be in a position to repel an invasion, or at least with very high priority. Ensure that you are able to do so. Okay, yeah, speaking of that, most powerful Sweden, second highest. The Persians, mediocre. We're not even on this list. But the reason I say I think we're relatively safe is the protective archers are going to be really hard to deal with. If someone shows up with a huge stack, of course, no, that isn't going to suffice, but we got archers out pretty early and have a number of them. Yeah, this is a little concerning. The Swedes seem like they might be closer to me than to anyone else, so he might choose me as a target and be ready to planning or working towards invading me. I'm going to build another archer here, and then we're going to put it into the stack with the rams. This is probably a good time to mention one change that I did actually make. Someone else said that they had done this, and I actually had made this suggestion before, and Walter was concerned that the AI wouldn't really know how to do anything or to use this correctly, or modify its play accordingly. I actually think it does. I've played some games since doing this, and it seems to know what to do differently. I severely penalized overstacking, so I'm sure that logistical system that I did mention it in the previous video, but you have field and urban logistical caps where, depending on if your unit is in a city or if it's outside of a city, there's a technologically predicated level of max units you can, max number of units, wow, I really am tired, I think, you can have before accruing penalties. But because there's also combined arms, like the aforementioned siege aid, it's kind of counterbalanced in that way. The military aids are not all the same, but previously it was almost always advantageous to stack everything in spite of the logistical penalties you get for doing so. If you had all of the military aids at full, you'd have several first strikes, you'd have several strength bonuses, you'd have withdrawal bonus. The drawback that remained was your movement was so slow, it was basically one per turn, even if you had mobile units, and you would heal very, very slowly. And that was still quite a speed bump on just throwing a massive stack around and fighting with it, because fighting, even if you don't die, will almost always reduce your strength considerably. Reinforcing takes longer. So it wasn't that it was without a penalty, but in the direct combat sense, it was too... there wasn't really a strategic choice to be made. You should always stack your units together when assembling a large army. I mean, sure, here and there you might have smaller stacks that you use for pillaging and raiding and things like this, but yeah, I shouldn't say always. I should rather say building a massive stack of death was still a very viable approach, which seems at odds with the way the system was intended when they implemented this. So what I did is I made it so that the penalties were significantly more severe, such that if you really did overstack an army way beyond what it historically would have been able to logistically sustain, then you incur a pretty significant combat disadvantage. So I didn't change the thresholds and which techs increase the logistics cap, but unrestricted the first category, the second -5 strength, same. And I didn't even change these earlier ones, I don't believe. The next one -10 strength, and then you start healing slower. I think I might have modified this one -15 at 12 to 13, but then I jumped it to -25, which I think previously was the cap at the max threshold. And I also, this wasn't my idea, I just thought the forum poster who mentioned this had a great idea, and I did the same, so I'll not try to take credit for this, but minus first strikes to at logistics 3. It makes sense if your army is so disorganized and crowded, and it can't march in order and things like this. You wouldn't have the cohesion and the agility to do a first strike, even just conceptually. So that ended up, because you still kept all your first strikes even if you had a strength penalty previously, which is substantial. And if you get a lot of first strikes for skirmishers and siege and things like this, the recon aid and the siege aid, your units were still very competent, but they're supposed to be overcrowded and not able to sustain a fighting level of military organization. So, and then at the next one, logistical problems 5, it's -3 first strikes, and then I don't remember if I modified the withdrawal chance, but that's a big jump, -15, -35. And like Manor, if the army is seriously disorganized and overcrowded, it doesn't have the ability to fight the way it's supposed to, you can't do first strikes. But why should your units be able to retreat easily either? So I nerfed that also, and then at the max level 6, this is just like punishing. +2 terrain movement cost, so you're never going to move more than one tile. -55% withdrawal chance, -4 first strikes, and then -55 strength. So the combined aid bonuses, I think, exactly matched the previous maximum on the strength malice, so that there was basically no net effect of overstacking from a strength standpoint alone. But now this is going to end up being like a pretty significant strength reduction, like almost an entire era difference of unit you're fighting with, if you find yourself seriously overstacked. So I like that, and it makes the player make more interesting decisions with respect to army composition. Which aid bonus do I want? What should this stack do? That way you kind of have to specialize your armies rather than just having an all-purpose SOD that you can send around and conquer things with. The AI seems to understand that. It's actually using smaller stacks itself. I don't know if this was a leader behavior thing or not, but I also noticed it would do individual units with cavalry, and it would pillage me more intelligently. That was probably too anecdotal to tie it to the logistics changes I made, but still, I haven't seen any problems with this. The AI still has managed to invade me, conquer my cities, fight well amongst itself. And so overall, I think this was a nice change, and it really was very simple to implement. I just had to change these values in the XML file. But yeah, I had intended to mention that a while ago, and this seemed like a good opportunity to mention that. This pasture's done. I'm gonna chop this. Typically, riverside forest isn't something you want to keep. You want to build farms, spread irrigation, or cottage it and get the extra commerce from a riverside tile, which is forfeited when there's a forest there. So, deforestation is a natural process in the course of the game, but when and where to do that is still strategically important to consider. Okay, Su Chang. He has horses and plenty of seafood. Okay. And he was likely to declare war, I believe. But like I had mentioned before, I find him pretty aggressive. He usually attacks me every game. Oh, and I need to make sure avoid unhappiness is on here. And here. Okay, he's settled to the south, which is nice because it reduces the likelihood he's going to compete with me for this eastern land so soon, at least. Though, again, I don't think anything over here is really calling my name so hard that I have to settle it. This is good later in the game stuff. Once these forests are chopped, this is nice, flat, freshwater grassland. So this is high quality land, but its value won't appreciate till later in the game. Likewise with all this coast, this will end up being really high commerce land, but you're not going to get that till the Renaissance or so. So it makes sense to backfill that later. Alright, sure. And you already have bronze working, go figure, warmonger. So that gave us a little bonus there. Jixian. And he did actually settle in the jungle down here, interesting. Yeah, he settled on the jungle to clear it. And then that left only one more. Why does the AI do this? He settled... That was a perfect opportunity to get fresh water here, but he chose to settle the spot that didn't have fresh water, so... The annoying thing about bad city placement, when it's barbarians, it kind of makes sense from a role-playing standpoint. They are barbarians, they just, they're not really planning cities and things like this. Well, okay, that might be a little unfair to the historically pejorative connotation of barbarians for Germanic peoples and things, but you know what I mean. Most likely the people in the game who are not supposed to be part of civilization proper are more likely not the ones trying to find ideal city locations, but when, like China or an actual named civ settles a city in a bad spot, you're not gonna, if you end up fighting them later, the city will be pretty mature by the time you conquer it, if you do. So it's definitely a better choice to just take the poorly placed, relatively mature city than raise it and rebuild it. But it's annoying. It's kind of an eyesore when you see you could have settled one to the south, which actually looks better anyway because it's like fully on the coast and along the river. But I digress. Okay, yeah, one archer. I think archers, they're strategically interesting because they're so ideally suited for city defense that you're going to have one or two in a lot of cities, which actually ironically makes them extremely expensive to build for general combat purposes, but they are actually pretty good for general combat. I like to have one or so in my stacks. If you're on a hill, it's likely to be the unit that has the highest combined strength, and also the ranged aid. So yeah, plenty of hill defense, basically. And, of course, if you take cities, you can drop them off as the new garrison. But I like to throw an archer in my stack as I'm building it. One turn until bronze working, so I'm probably just going to put a hammer or a turn into something and then switch to barracks, which I will build next. Yeah, let's just do smokehouse, and then let's assemble my army closer to the west, because obviously we're not going to get invaded from the east. If Sweden shows up and says knock knock and they've got a big stack, I want to be in a position where I'm already able to counterattack. So let's assemble our army on this hill. God, it's really gonna bug me. Why did he choose to build the city there? Oh well. Okay, and actually now is about the time to switch to sailing. As classic, you need everything but have to prioritize. I also need road building soon. And I should have probably researched stone cutting, because if we can get 2 limestone, that's always great. If you can spot a place where you can get 2 limestone early in the game, while you're planning your early cities, it's a matter of high priority. That is one thing I really like about Realism Invictus in particular, is the resource reveal. I mean, this was already a thing in Civ 4, but it's more felt and pronounced in this mod. Texts that reveal resources that are critical typically don't do a lot of other things of immediate value, which forces you to make the decision of, okay, do I research weaving or stone cutting to see if there are resources I want? But then you have to forfeit something very immediately advantageous, like, archery. Let's say, yeah, you can do stone cutting or archery. With tool making, or let's say you have woodworking too. Let's say you have woodworking and tool making, and then between archery or stone cutting, revealing stone has a lot of strategic potential, but the only other thing it does really is lets you build really high investment wonders, which, unless you're in a especially, well, I don't know. There are many cases where that's not a good choice. Such a costly investment of time and hammers, which you may not even end up being successful in. So you can research stone cutting for the potential, but then you forego archery. You have woodworking, so you can build militia, which is an okay unit, but I have seen many times militia defending cities poorly. Archers are really hard to kill in the role of city defense, so that kind of this or that intelligent decision making is really fun, and I like how in this game, this mod specifically, texts that reveal resources usually show up a good ways before they end up really being useful. For instance, stone cutting is a second tier tech, but you can't really use that until civil engineering, where you can build paved roads. Likewise, coal is something you must have, or you're basically going to lose. But you reveal it in the late medieval era, but you don't vitally need it until early industrial. Well, I guess technically late industrial, the way the game puts it, but yeah. So anyway, that is a fun dynamic that I wanted to briefly comment on. Alrighty, so yeah, speaking of that, I don't think yeah, this isn't going to be a wonder game for me, I don't think. Yeah, I don't see any wonder that's... Maybe Statue of Zeus for the Free Pagan Temple. I don't think any religions have been founded yet. No, yeah, none of them have. That's unusual. So we must have no zealot leaders. Which means our viability of building pagan temples is going to be greater. And since we're settling pretty aggressively early on, and I might continue to do that, The value of a wonder that just gives you a free pagan temple will appreciate consequently. This is double production with gold, which actually we have. So that might be a wonder to... Well, we don't have it yet, but yeah, effectively we do. It's in the bag, as it were. So, yeah, that might be kind of the next thing I do. We need road building, fishing, sailing. I'm going to need to start fishing in my capital soon, but that's not super high priority, honestly. Yeah. I'm going to do storytelling next, and then we can build barracks and storyteller circles because we have 3 cities. This is a 3-cap limited building. Then I might actually start actively going for Statue of Zeus. With the production bonus we have. We'll need roads, and this will have to be mined and everything, but we have 3 workers, so I don't see that taking too long.
It is entirely seemly for a young man killed in battle to lie mangled by the bronze spear. In his death, all things appear fair.
This is mostly a vanilla Civ thing, but I love the aesthetic of this. This kind of colored pencil sketch drawing icons that you see everywhere. I really like that style. This is actually my avatar on the Civilization forums. It reminds me of the opening scene in Conan the Barbarian where they are inauthentically metal casting a sword, but whatever. And, you know, Leonard Nimoy's narration. And this is just a game that I like looking at it. It's fun. It's pleasant. Okay, but as far as the strategic side of things goes, yes, I'm going to switch to autocracy. I'm probably going to do it this very turn. But let's get through all the automated windows and stuff first. Okay. I like this little African ancient music. Speaking of pleasant. And I've played this game a really, really long time. I actually got this game when it was brand new, Civ 4, when I was a kid, and so this is very nostalgic for me as well. I liked the music that RI had for the ancient era was fun. It sounded really great. It just didn't sound ancient. You know, you have all these, you know, strings, instruments, and horns and things like this, which doesn't really sound ancient. This does. So that would have been better for like the classical era, probably. Sans the orchestral stuff, but whatever. Alright, so barracks. Because then, yeah, actually that's great because we did not even hit our happy cap. We built enough settlers and workers and everything. We weren't throwing yield out the window, but now, to a pretty refined level of precision, we are poised to not hit our happy cap and be forced to waste excess food. Yeah, the 2 hammers on that savannah is worthwhile. Another thing I do like about RI, I will sing its praises many times throughout the course of this Let's Play, most likely, but is passive yield from terrain is actually somewhat significant early on. There's probably a good historical argument to be made for that, but in vanilla Civ, it's like if you see this little hut indicating that an unimproved tile is being worked, it's usually a red flag, because in that, well, in the unmodded game, most of the time, if you have enough workers, you should always be building improvements and things, and you can do cheesy things like switch to caste system and just spray out specialists in every city and things like that. So usually there is a better choice than working unimproved terrain, but in Realism Invictus, you have infrastructural requirements to run specialists. In many cases, you can only have 1 specialist, or maybe 2, and oftentimes they're not of the same sort. And early game improvements are not great. A lot of improvements appreciate in value with technology and other buildings and things like the mine. You can build it with early metalworking, but it's not very good right away. It's sometimes not competitive with unimproved terrain. So for instance, this Plains Hill Mine is going to be worse, I believe, than a well, no, I think it's going to be equivalent to a forested hill, but working the forested hill isn't necessarily a bad choice. And it makes sense from an immersion standpoint. Can't you imagine the people of Athenae gathering, materials to construct a barracks from this kind of quasi-forest brush area? And, that makes sense, but in the early game, vanilla, that's basically never something you want to do. You either don't have enough workers, or you should be running a specialist instead or something. But it makes sense that an early civilization in 2450 BC would be thriving based upon what was readily available in their untamed environment. And the mod does a pretty good job of, or at least I like how the mod makes it more significant early on. Yeah, especially since the improvements are not just like a flat rate plus whatever for all time, when, you know, that is not historically the case, and I think this handles it in a more fun way. Without endeavoring to be too realistic, of course. Kind of like what I was saying with you should always take the forested hill to defend with a damaged unit, but if you've got a wolf here, or if you've got a cheetah here, you might not be on a better turf fighting in the forest against a wolf, and so you have to think a little bit more case by case, situationally specific than you do in the base game, which has a lot more. This is the optimal approach checklists than this mod, I believe. Okay, it's kind of a continuation of the nice natural break. You've got a desert and another line of hills here. Yeah, I'm gonna follow through with the granary here, and then once storytelling's done, I'll do a storyteller circle. Ah, crap. Oh well, that's gonna happen sometimes. That wasn't a mistake I made. I just didn't know that archer was here. Yep. So sadly, our woodsman scout's gonna die in a unfamiliar terrain. He's almost certainly gonna die. It's 3-1, and yeah. Oh well. That scout had a good career. He revealed our region of the world successfully. So, but yeah, no, I fully expect he's gonna die. All right, rest in peace, scout. Yeah. Well, 2.8% isn't something you never see, but it's also something you should never expect. More forest, cool. That's kind of interesting too. I guess it does have an adjacent one. These coniferous trees are trying to escape because they know they're getting chopped, but it's funny because all the other trees are clearly deciduous. Okay, you're sniffing me out, I can see. I wonder if Walter got these guys from Crusader Kings 2. I think the Yalm's Viking is, but yeah, this goes without saying, but another thing about this mod that's just awesome is the extensive art of all the unit models. I mean, of course, Civ 4 has engine limitations on the, file size of the art files, if I'm not wrong. So I think when he made these, he had to reduce their complexity a little bit to get it to fit. But you've just got thousands and thousands of civilization and culture specific units. That's just really fun to look at. I mean, all the strategic mechanics of the game aside, there's a lot of immersion when you have so many specific real things, even if they're not functionally different in the game. Just having the units modeled on a civ-specific basis is so cool. Like, what game does that? This game feels so huge. Like, I could play this. I mean, of course, I've got a life. I do other things, but whenever I'm playing a game, this just feels like infinitely replayable. There's so much flavor, and so, Walter, if you are watching this, thank you very much for all of your hard work. I very much appreciate it. But yeah, speaking of what I mentioned this in the first place for, I hope it didn't crash. Okay, yeah, that took a while. The Yom's Viking. I think this came from Crusader Kings. But, see, isn't that cool? He's literally wearing a wolf on his back, and he's got a damaged looking shield and everything. And while the base game is fun when you're looking at the same template unit, I think the only, well, at least it's the only one that comes to mind, modern artillery, just comparing like how cool this looks, the apparent level of quality that's just so conspicuous here, with the icons too, not only just the model. This is sort of what the, or maybe it's mobile artillery, I think is what it's called. Yeah, so this is what stuff looked like in the base game. I mean, that doesn't look bad, but this is a pentagon, and it's huge, and I don't know, it doesn't look bad. But when you're playing the base game and you see this all the time for everything, axeman, spearman, whatever, it's a lot more bland. With this, you can use your imagination a lot more, and it's just fun. So that is much appreciated. Yeah, but with the modern mobile artillery, this is just the standard template in the mod. Case in point, look how many different kinds you have. As far as I know, these are all functionally the same in the game, but the way that they're visually represented is so cool. Seriously, I mean, sometimes I like to just look around in here and read the little Wikipedia excerpts from these that are probably like, the same article's been revised many times since it was initially pulled from the website. But anyway, back to the game here. I did want to pay some tribute to that, but alright. I think you are the anglicized Montezuma. No, you're not. You're the guy that was before him. Okay, please let us have peace. Somehow I kind of doubt that.
Storytelling reveals meaning without committing the error of defining it.
I guess I was gently chastised for saying that jungle are not what you want to see in your start. Walter said that this was perhaps overpowered to start with jungle because of animism, and I did remember slash and burn farms. I said there's no advantage to jungle other than role playing, and that's not really true because the slash and burn farm is pretty good. But I just, with the health complications of jungle and everything, I don't see how that's outweighed. But yeah, I did need to correct myself. The slash and burn farm, to me, that doesn't seem advantageous. To me, the slash and burn farm is making lemonade with lemons. If you have jungle, it's a decent cope, I suppose, but I don't see how it's actually better in any way. But anyway, I didn't design this mod. I'm not a genius, but I'm glad we didn't have jungle in our start in any case. Because I'm formatively or tentatively planning to build the statue of Zeus, I want pagan temples. I'm not going to go animism. I also don't really have a need for this. This is really, if you have jungle, a good civic. But yeah, well, you have that -3 in your empire. You'd have to have a lot of jungle for it to end up being concerning. And also, ancient era cities tend to have health caps that are so high, usually due to forest and low population, of course, that you're never going to bump that ceiling. It's like I said, happiness is going to be the main issue. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll give that a try. If I said I love Totestra the most, it does tend to give me jungle, so next time I play and I have jungle in my BFC, I'll give that a try and see how far it carries me. Alright. Yeah, so we need the storytelling circles. I'm going to go stone cutting next and then road building. And I am at an hour now. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm actually going to just keep playing. I will start recording the next video shortly after I sign off here. It's going to take a long time for it to upload. So you might see both of these release at about the same time. I guess from your perspective, if you're listening to this, the other one will probably already be published as well. But yeah, so we got our third city up. We met even more warmongering neighbors. It's 110 turns into the game and a religion still hasn't been founded, so this will be interesting. The odds of, especially on a large map, not having someone that guns for an early religion are pretty low. Maybe this will be a game where like Christianity or Islam become the dominant religion. That they do spread faster, so that kind of happens later in the game anyway, but you won't have any like entrenched Isabellas or Gandhis or people who will really white knuckle their early founded religion. So this is looking to be a pretty interesting game so far. I am going to keep playing while this is uploading, but it has been an hour, a little over an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off for this one. This is the Ashard Het. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.